The crystal towers of Luminara reached toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, the Grand Council of the Velar Empire gathered for their monthly meeting. Thousands of beings filled the massive hall, their bodies glowing with soft blue light. They were the rulers of half the galaxy, the most powerful species anyone had ever known. The Velar had conquered over 300 worlds without firing a single weapon. They did not need guns or bombs. They had something better. They could reach into the minds of other creatures and control them. One touch of their telepathic power could turn the strongest warrior into an obedient servant. No species had ever resisted them. Not one. At the center of the hall stood 3 ancient Velar. These were the Seers. Being so old that their bodies had turned almost white, they could see things that others could not. They could glimpse the future in their visions. Today they had come with a warning. The oldest Seer raised her thin hand. The noise in the hall died down. Everyone waited to hear what she would say. "We have seen a darkness coming," the Seer said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard it clearly. "There is a species on a small blue world. They call it Earth. They call themselves humans. These creatures will destroy everything we have built." Silence filled the hall for 3 seconds. Then someone laughed. Then another. Soon the entire hall was filled with mocking laughter. Council leader Thexrin stood up. His body glowed brighter than others, showing his power. "You waste our time with tales of primitives? We know of Earth. We have studied them. They are nothing. They barely manage to reach their own moon. They still burn fossil fuels. They kill each other over invisible lines on maps." General Voklas joined him. "Their technology is a joke. They use chemical rockets that explode half the time. Their weapons are crude metal tubes that throw tiny pieces of lead. A single Velar child could dominate their entire planet." The Seers did not smile. They did not get angry. They simply stood there, looking sad. "You do not understand," the second Seer said. "Their weakness is their strength. They have suffered. They have struggled. They have died and failed and gotten back up. Their minds are like broken glass, sharp and unpredictable. You cannot hold them." "Enough," Thexrin said. "The council has real matters to discuss. Return to your meditation chambers. Your visions have made you confused." The 3 Seers bowed slowly and left the hall. Behind them, the council continued their meeting, already forgetting the warning. They discussed trade routes and mining operations. They planned which worlds to conquer next. Earth was not even mentioned again. Far across the galaxy on that small blue world, Commander Deho checked the systems on the colony ship Horizon for the 100th time. Everything looked good. The fusion engines were running perfectly. The life support system showed green across all sections. 10,000 people were sleeping in cryopods, dreaming of their new home. Deho walked through the empty corridors. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. He liked these moments alone. In 2 more months, they would reach New Haven, a planet with breathable air and liquid water. Humanity's first real colony beyond the solar system. He stopped at the observation deck. Through the massive window, he could see the stars streaming past. They were traveling at nearly light speed, faster than any human ship had ever gone before. The experimental warp drive was holding together. Barely. "Can't sleep, Commander?" Deho turned. Heejin stood in the doorway holding a tablet. She was the chief scientist on the mission, responsible for studying New Haven's ecosystem. She was also one of the few people awake during the journey. "Just thinking," Deho said. "What about you?" "The sensors picked up something strange," Heejin said, walking over to stand beside him. "Look at this," she showed him the tablet. It displayed a map of the space around them. There were dozens of red dots ahead. "What am I looking at?" Deho asked. "Energy signatures," Heejin said. "Big ones. I've never seen readings like this before. They're arranged in a pattern like they're waiting for something." Deho felt a cold weight in his stomach. Could they be natural? Maybe some kind of stellar phenomenon? "Maybe," Heejin said, but she did not sound convinced. "Or maybe we're not alone out here." In the engineering section, Jiwoo was making adjustments to the warp drive. The young engineer loved this machine like it was his child. He had helped design it back on Earth. Now he kept it running through constant repairs and modifications. "Come on, baby," he whispered to the massive engine core. "Just 2 more months. You can do it." The drive hummed in response. Jiwoo smiled and made a note on his data pad. Then he noticed something odd. The energy readings were fluctuating. Not much, but enough to be noticeable. He ran a diagnostic. Everything checked out. But the fluctuations continued. It was like something outside the ship was interfering with their drive. That's weird, Jiwoo said to himself. In the medical bay, Sang-woo was reviewing the health data from the sleeping colonists. All 10,000 people needed to be monitored constantly. Even small problems in cryosleep could become deadly. So far, everyone was fine. Pilot Yunseo was on the bridge watching the navigation systems. Her job was simple, keep the ship on course. But she was bored. There was nothing to do in deep space. No obstacles to avoid. No course corrections needed. Just endless darkness and distant stars. She noticed the red dots on her scanner at the same moment Hee-jin showed them to Daeho. "Commander," Yunseo said over the comm system, "we might have a problem." Down in the cargo bay, Tae-yang was checking the weapons locker. The colony ship was not a military vessel, but they had brought some weapons anyway, just in case. Tae-yang was a weapons engineer, one of the best. He had designed most of the rifles and defense systems they carried. He hoped they would never need them. But he had learned long ago that hope was not a strategy. Back on Luminara, the Seers stood in their chamber at the top of the tallest tower. They did not speak. They did not need to. They shared their thoughts directly as all Velthar could. They had seen the future. They had seen the humans coming. They had seen the war that would follow. They had seen the sky turn dark with ships and fire. They had seen the Empire fall. But they had also seen something else, something that gave them a strange feeling that was almost like hope. The humans would suffer. Many would die. But they would not break. They could not be broken. Perhaps it is time, the oldest seer thought to the others. Perhaps the Empire has ruled long enough. Perhaps the galaxy needs something new, something wild and unpredictable. The other seers did not respond. They simply watched the stars and waited for the darkness to come. On the horizon, Daeho stood on the bridge and watched the red dots grow larger on the screen. They were getting closer. In a few hours, they would know what those energy signatures were. He had a bad feeling about this. But there was no turning back now. They were committed to their course. 10,000 people depended on him to get them safely to New Haven. "All crew, wake up," Daeho said into the comm system. "We might have company." The peaceful journey was over. Something was waiting for them in the dark. Something that would change everything. The alarms woke everyone on the horizon. 10,000 people stumbled out of their cryopods, confused and scared. They had expected to sleep until they reached New Haven. Something had gone wrong. Daeho stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the command console. On the main screen, he could see them now. Ships, dozens of them. They were like nothing humanity had ever built. They looked like living creatures made of crystal and light. They moved through space as smoothly as fish through water. "Try to contact them," Daeho ordered. Hee-jin worked the communication systems. She sent out messages in every language Earth knew. She tried radio waves, laser signals, even simple mathematics. Anything that might work. No response came back. The alien ships moved closer. They formed a circle around the horizon, trapping it. There was no escape. "This is the Earth colony ship Horizon," Daeho broadcast. "We come in peace. We mean no harm. Please respond." This time something did respond, but it was not a message. It was something else entirely. Pain exploded in Daeho's head. It felt like someone had stabbed a hot knife into his brain. He screamed and fell to his knees. Around him, everyone else on the bridge collapsed too. Inside their heads, they felt something alien trying to get in. It was pushing against their minds, trying to take control. The pain was worse than anything they had ever felt. Some people passed out immediately. Others screamed until their voices went raw. But something strange happened. The alien presence could not get through. It pushed and pushed, but the human minds would not break. They bent, they cracked, they bled, but they did not break. On the lead Velthar ship, Captain Ralthor felt confusion for the first time in his long life. This was impossible. Every species they had ever encountered submitted within seconds. The Velthar telepathic power was absolute. It could not be resisted. Yet these humans were resisting. Not well, they were clearly in agony. Many had lost consciousness. But their minds remained their own. Their thoughts stayed locked away behind walls of pain and stubborn will. "Increase power," Ralthor ordered his crew. The telepathic assault grew stronger. On the horizon, people began to bleed from their noses and ears. Some had seizures. The medical bay filled with casualties faster than Sang-woo and his team could treat them. But still, the humans did not submit. Yoon Seo was at her pilot station, blood dripping from her nose onto the controls. Her hands shook, her vision blurred, but she kept them on the control stick. She had been a fighter pilot before joining the colony mission. She had trained herself to function through pain and fear. "Commander," she gasped. "Orders?" Daeho pulled himself to his feet. His head felt like it was splitting apart, but his mind was still his own. "Jiwoo," he said into his comm unit. "Do you hear me?" In the engineering section, Jiwoo was curled on the floor. The pain was unbearable, but he heard the commander's voice through his earpiece. "I hear you," Jiwoo managed to say. "The warp drive," Daeho said. "Can you overload it?" Jiwoo understood immediately. An overloading warp drive would create a massive electromagnetic pulse. It would fry every electronic system on the ship, but it might also disrupt whatever the aliens were using to attack them. "Give me 30 seconds, Jiwoo said. He crawled to the engine controls. Every movement sent fresh waves of pain through his skull. He could feel the alien presence in his mind trying to turn him into a puppet. His fingers found the emergency override panel. He entered the shutdown codes backward, the way he had been taught never to do. The warp drive began to scream. "Everyone brace," Daeho shouted. The drive exploded. Not violently, but energetically. A wave of electromagnetic energy burst out from the horizon in all directions. Every light on the ship went dark. Every system died. The telepathic assault stopped. In the sudden silence, people gasped and sobbed. The pain was gone, but the memory of it remained. Many were unconscious. Others were in shock. On the Velthar ships, the sensors had gone blind. The electromagnetic pulse had temporarily disabled their detection systems. By the time they could see again, the horizon was gone. The human ship had used its final moments of power to fire every thruster at once. It had shot away from the alien fleet like a bullet, heading for the nearest planetary body, a small rocky moon orbiting a gas giant. "Follow them," Ralthor ordered, but he felt uncertain now. These creatures should have been easy prey. Instead, they had hurt themselves just to escape. What kind of species would do that? The horizon crashed on the moon's surface. There was no way to land properly with no power. Yoon Seo did her best to aim for a flat area, but the ship hit hard. It plowed through rock and dust for half a kilometer before finally stopping. The impact killed 300 people instantly. Another 500 were badly injured. The rest stumbled out of the wreckage dazed and bleeding. Daeho was one of the first out. His left arm was broken. His ribs hurt with every breath. But he was alive. He looked up at the sky. The alien ships were coming. He could see them descending through the thin atmosphere, glowing like fallen stars. "Everyone who can move, grab weapons and supplies," Daeho shouted. "We need to get away from the ship now." Heejin and Taeyang organized the survivors into groups. They grabbed emergency kits, weapons, food, water, anything they could carry. Sang-woo and his medical team worked frantically to stabilize the injured. "We can't move all of them," Sang-woo said. "Some are too hurt." "Then we stay with them," Daeho said. "All of us. We don't leave anyone behind." They moved the injured into what remained of the ship's cargo bay. It was the most protected area. Taeyang set up a defensive perimeter with the weapons they had. Rifles, grenades, a few plasma cutters that could be used as weapons. It was not much. Jiwoo managed to get the ship's reactor working on backup power. It gave them lights and heat at least. He also got the communication array partially functional. "I can send a message," Jiwoo said, "back to Earth. But it will take years to reach them at this distance." "Send it anyway," Daeho said. "Tell them what happened. Tell them we found aliens. Tell them the aliens are hostile. Tell them to be ready." Jiwoo sent the message. A simple radio broadcast containing everything they had learned. It would travel at the speed of light across the vast emptiness of space. Maybe someone would hear it someday. The Velthar ships landed around the crashed horizon. Hundreds of aliens emerged, glowing in the darkness. They approached cautiously. These humans had proven to be dangerous. Ralthor stepped forward. He tried the telepathic contact again, but more gently this time. He did not try to control. He tried to communicate. Daeho felt the presence in his mind again. But this time it did not hurt. It felt like someone knocking on a door instead of breaking it down. He tried to think clearly. Tried to send a thought back. "We came in peace. Why did you attack us?" Ralthor received the thought. It was hard to understand. Human minds were chaotic, filled with noise and emotion, but he got the basic meaning. You entered forbidden space, Ralthor sent back. This territory belongs to the Velar Empire. No other species is allowed here. We did not know, Deho thought. We are explorers. We are looking for a new home. Then you will find it as our servants, Ralthor replied. Submit to the Empire. You will be given tasks. You will obey, or you will die. Deho felt anger rise in his chest. They had traveled across the galaxy seeking freedom and hope. They would not trade one master for another. No, he thought back. We will not be slaves. Ralthor felt surprise. No species refused the Empire. It was unthinkable. Then you choose death, he sent. The Velar began to advance. Their bodies glowed brighter as they prepared to attack. Open fire, Deho shouted. The humans opened fire. Bullets and energy beams lit up the night. Some Velar fell. Others raised shields of pure energy that stopped the weapons. The battle had begun. A tiny group of humans against the might of an empire. It should have been over in minutes, but the humans did not surrender. They fought with everything they had, and the Velar learned something that night. Humans were very good at fighting. The first battle lasted 6 hours. When it finally ended, both sides retreated to lick their wounds. The Velar had lost 40 soldiers. The humans had lost 200. But the humans had held their ground, and that was a victory in itself. Captain Ralthor returned to his ship deeply troubled. He sent a message to the Grand Council on Luminara. The humans cannot be controlled through telepathy. Recommend immediate orbital bombardment to eliminate the threat. Permission was granted within the hour. On the moon's surface, Deho gathered his remaining officers. They stood around a holographic map that Jiwoo had managed to project from a salvaged datapad. They will bomb us from space, Deho said. We need shelter. Deep shelter. The moon has caves, Yunseo said. She had taken a scout team around the crash site. Old lava tubes. Some of them go down hundreds of meters. Then that is where we go, Deho decided. The survivors worked through the night. They carried everything they could salvage from the horizon into the caves. Medical supplies, weapons, food processors, water recyclers, power cells. Jiwoo and his engineering team dismantled entire sections of the ship and dragged them underground. When the bombardment began at dawn, most of the humans were already safe in the caves. They felt the ground shake as energy beams hit the surface above them. Rocks fell from the cave ceiling. People screamed and held each other, but the caves held. The moon's crust was rich in heavy metals that disrupted the Velar targeting systems. The bombardment was powerful but imprecise. After 3 days, the bombardment stopped. The Velar believed the humans were dead. They were wrong. In the deepest cave, which the survivors had named New Hope, Deho addressed his people. 9,000 colonists remained alive. They sat on rocks and salvaged chairs, their faces dirty and tired but defiant. We did not come across the galaxy to die on this moon, Deho said. We came to build a new home. So that is what we will do. Right here, in these caves. We will survive. We will grow strong. And one day we will make the aliens regret attacking us. The people cheered. It was not a loud cheer. They were too exhausted for that. But it was real. Over the following weeks, the survivors transformed the caves into a base. Jiwoo set up a fusion reactor deep underground. It provided power for lights, heat, and the machines they needed to survive. They built hydroponic gardens to grow food. They set up water recyclers that pulled moisture from the rocks. Sang-woo established a medical center in a large cavern. He treated the injured and organized teams to care for the sick. Many people had been hurt by the telepathic attacks. Some had nightmares. Others could not stop shaking. Sang-woo did what he could with limited medicine and unlimited patience. Hyejin became obsessed with understanding the Velar. She studied recordings from their encounters. She analyzed the telepathic attacks. She was a scientist and she believed every problem had a solution. One night she made a discovery that changed everything. I think I know why we can resist them, Hyejin told Deho. They sat in what passed for his office, a small cave lit by a single lamp. Tell me, Deho said. Human brains are messy, Hyejin explained. We have all these conflicting thoughts and emotions. Fear and courage at the same time. Love and hate. Hope and despair. Our minds are full of contradictions. And that helps us? Deho asked. Yes, Hyejin said. The Velthar telepathy works by finding patterns in brain activity. They read those patterns and then override them. But human patterns are too chaotic, too unpredictable. It is like trying to grab smoke. Can we use this? Deho asked. I think so, Yejin said. I am working on a device. A neural dampener. It will make our brain patterns even more chaotic. It should give us complete protection from their telepathy. How long until you have a working prototype? Deho asked. Give me 2 weeks, Yejin said. She did it in 10 days. The first neural dampener was crude. It was a metal band that fit around the head, connected to a small power pack. But it worked. When Hyejin tested it on herself and then asked Jiwoo to try a mild telepathic simulation, she felt nothing. The device blocked the mental attack completely. They built more. Everyone in the base got one. Now the humans could face the Velthar without fear of mind control. But defense was not enough. They needed to fight back. That was where Taeyang came in. He had been studying the Velthar weapons they had captured from dead soldiers. Plasma rifles that fired bolts of superheated energy, personal shields that could stop bullets, communication devices. All of it was far more advanced than anything Earth had built. But Taeyang noticed something interesting. The technology was advanced, but it was not perfect. The plasma rifles overheated easily. The shields failed when hit by strong magnetic fields. The aliens had grown lazy, relying on their telepathy instead of their technology. We can beat them, Taeyang told Deho. Not head-to-head, but we can hurt them. We can make them bleed. They began planning raids. Small teams would sneak out at night and attack Velthar patrols. They would steal supplies, capture weapons, and disappear back into the caves before reinforcements arrived. Yoon Seo led the first raid. She took 10 people, all wearing neural dampeners and carrying rifles. They found a Velthar patrol near the crash site and ambushed them. The battle was short and brutal. The Velthar never expected the attack. They tried to use their telepathy, but the dampeners blocked it. 3 aliens died before they could react. The rest retreated, leaving their equipment behind. Yoon Seo's team returned to the caves with 4 plasma rifles, 2 shield generators, and a Velthar data pad. It was a huge victory. We can do this, Yoon Seo reported. They are afraid of us now. The raids continued. Every few days, another patrol would disappear. The humans grew bolder. They attacked supply ships. They sabotaged communication arrays. They even managed to capture a small scout vessel intact. In that scout vessel, they found a wounded Velthar soldier. Sang-woo insisted on treating him. We are not murderers, he told Deho. If we can save him, we should. The surgery was difficult. Velthar biology was completely different from human. But Sang-woo was a good doctor. He worked for 8 hours straight, repairing damaged organs and stopping internal bleeding. The Velthar soldier survived. When he woke up, he was terrified. He expected torture or death. Instead, he found Sang-woo sitting beside his bed, checking his vital signs. You're alive, Sang-woo said simply. Rest now. Over the following days, the Velthar soldier, whose name was Kolven, began to talk. At first, he only answered simple questions. But gradually, he told them more. He told them about the Velar Empire, how it had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, how every species they encountered had become slaves, how the Empire believed they were superior to all other life. But you are not slaves, Kolven said one day. How is this possible? We choose not to be, Deho said simply. Kolven thought about this for a long time. The idea was new to him. The idea that a species could choose its own fate. Through Kolven, the humans learned the Empire's weaknesses. They learned which technologies were vulnerable. They learned about other species who secretly hated their masters. They learned about the politics and power struggles within the Velthar Council. Most importantly, they learned that they were not alone in their resistance. All across Velthar space, other species had heard about the humans. Word spread through secret channels and whispered conversations. A species that could not be controlled. A species that fought back. A species that won. Rebellions began to spark on conquered worlds. Small at first, acts of sabotage and defiance. But they grew. The Empire's grip was slipping. On Luminara, Council leader Thexerin received the reports with growing anger. One crashed ship, he raged. One group of primitives. How can they cause so much trouble? General Vokla stood before him. They are inspiring others. The slaves see that resistance is possible. If we do not crush the humans completely, the Empire will fall. Then crush them, Thexerin ordered. Send the elite guard. I want every human on that moon dead within the month. The elite guard was the best the Velthar had. Specially trained soldiers who had conquered entire planets. They were ruthless, skilled, and feared throughout the galaxy. 5,000 of them were sent to the moon. They arrived in massive warships ready to wipe out the human infestation once and for all. In the caves, alarms began to sound. Jiwoo had set up sensors around the moon's surface. They detected the incoming fleet. How many? Taeho asked. Too many, Jiwoo replied. We cannot fight them all. Daeho looked at his officers. Yunseo, Hiejin, Taeyang, Sangwoo, Jiwoo. They had become his family. They had survived together when survival seemed impossible. Then we do not fight them all at once, Daeho said. We make them come to us. We turn these caves into a maze. We use traps and ambushes. We make every meter cost them blood. They will eventually overwhelm us, Heejin said quietly. Yes, Daeho agreed. But before they do, we will make them remember us. We will make them understand that humans do not go quietly. The survivors prepared for the final battle. They rigged explosives in the cave tunnels. They set up defensive positions at every choke point. They distributed every weapon they had. In the medical cave, Sangwoo treated people one last time. He checked their neural dampeners. He gave them stim shots to keep them alert. He hugged those who needed comfort. Hyojin sent one last message to Earth. It contained everything they had learned. All the elite guard entered the caves like a flood of glowing death. 5,000 Velthar soldiers, the best warriors the Empire had ever created. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their telepathic senses searching for prey. They found traps instead. The first explosion killed 30 soldiers. The tunnel collapsed, crushing them under tons of rock. The second trap was a plasma mine that Taeyang had built from captured weapons. It vaporized another 20. The third trap was simple. Sharpened metal stakes hidden in the darkness. The elite guard slowed down. They became cautious. This was not the easy slaughter they had expected. Deep in the caves, Daeho watched on a screen that Jiwoo had rigged up. Cameras stolen from Velthar equipment showed him the enemy's advance. They were taking casualties, but they kept coming. There were too many. Teams 2 and 3 fall back to position Beta, Daeho ordered into his radio. Team 1 hold the eastern tunnel for 5 more minutes, then collapse it. The humans fought with discipline and desperation. They knew every tunnel, every hiding spot, every weakness in the cave system. The Velthar did not. In Tunnel 7, Yunseo led her team in a fighting retreat. They fired their weapons, killed a few enemies, then ran deeper into the maze. The Velthar chased them right into an ambush. Humans popped out from side passages and opened fire from all directions. More aliens fell, but more kept coming. In the medical cave, Sangwoo worked frantically. Wounded fighters kept arriving. Bullet wounds, burns, broken bones. He stitched and bandaged and injected painkillers. People went back to fight before their wounds had properly closed. There was no choice. Heejin was not fighting. She was in her laboratory working on one final project. If they were going to die here, she wanted to make it count. She had been studying the moon's core. It was unstable, full of reactive elements. With the right trigger, it could become a bomb. A very big bomb, Jiwoo, she called over the radio. I need you here. Now. Jiwoo arrived 5 minutes later, covered in dust and blood. What do you need? Help me turn this moon into a weapon, Hyejin said. She showed him her calculations. The fusion reactor could be overloaded. The energy could be directed into the moon's core. The resulting explosion would destroy everything on the surface. Maybe even crack the moon itself. We would die too, Jiwoo said. We are dying anyway, Hyejin replied. This way we take them with us, Jiwoo nodded slowly. How long do you need? 3 hours to set it up. Then I can trigger it remotely. Get started, Jiwoo said. I will buy you time. But time was running out. The elite guard had pushed deep into the cave system. They had taken heavy losses, but they were winning through sheer numbers. Tunnel after tunnel fell to them. General Voklas led from the front. He was ancient and powerful, a warrior who had conquered 100 worlds. These humans impressed him. They fought well. They were brave. But bravery was not enough. He reached the central cavern where the humans had set up their main base. Hundreds of colonists were there, fighters and civilians alike. They had nowhere left to run. Surrender, Voklas sent telepathically, his message strong enough to push through the neural dampeners. You have fought well, but this ends now. Surrender and you will be allowed to live as servants of the Empire. Deho stood at the front of his people. His rifle was empty. His body was covered in wounds. But he stood straight and proud. No, he said aloud. Humans do not surrender. Then humans die, Voklas replied. The final battle began. It was chaos. Humans and Velthar fighting hand-to-hand in the darkness. Plasma fire lit up the cavern like lightning. People screamed. Blood painted the rocks. Taeyang fought with a knife in one hand and a stolen plasma pistol in the other. He killed 4 Velthar before one shot him in the chest. He fell, still firing, until his weapon clicked empty. Sang-Woo was in the medical cave trying to treat wounded when the elite guard broke through. He stood in front of his patients holding a scalpel. You will not touch them, he said. The Velthar soldier shot him without hesitation. Yunseo was buried under rubble when a tunnel collapsed. She died quickly, crushed by the weight of stone. Jiwoo was in the reactor room helping Hyejin with the final preparations. A group of Velthar found them. Jiwoo threw himself at them, fighting with tools in his bare hands. He bought Hyejin 30 seconds. It was enough. She activated the sequence. The reactor began to overload. The process could not be stopped now. It is done, Hyejin whispered into her radio. Everyone, I am sorry. She died when a plasma bolt hit her in the back. In the central cavern, Deho fought beside his people. He saw them fall one by one. His friends. His family. The people who had trusted him to lead them to a new home. He had failed them. Or had he? They had fought an empire. They had proven that humans could not be controlled. They had inspired others to resist. Maybe that was victory enough. A Velthar blade cut deep into his side. He fell to his knees. General Voklas stood over him. You should have surrendered, Voklas said. We are human, Deho replied, blood on his lips. We do not know how. Then the moon exploded. The reactor overload triggered a chain reaction in the core. The entire moon shattered like glass. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. Everything on the surface and everything in the caves was instantly vaporized. 9,000 humans died. 5,000 Velthar elite guard died. General Voklas died. The moon itself died. But the message survived. Far across space, traveling at light speed, Hyejin's transmission continued toward Earth. It carried everything the colonists had learned. Every weakness of the Velthar. Every strategy that worked. Every piece of technology they had reverse-engineered. It would take years to arrive. But it would arrive. On Luminara, Council Leader Thexrin received news of the disaster. He sat in silence for a long time. The entire elite guard, gone. General Voklas, dead. All because of one crashed colony ship. The Seers had been right. The humans were dangerous. But surely, Thexrin thought, surely that was the end of it. One ship destroyed, no more humans in Veltar space. The threat was over. He was wrong. On Earth, humanity had noticed something troubling. The horizon was 3 months overdue. No messages had been received. The ship had simply disappeared. A rescue mission was proposed. Then a second colony mission. Then someone suggested sending a whole fleet. Why stop at one world? Why not colonize a dozen? 100? Humanity began to build. Shipyards worked around the clock. New vessels were constructed by the thousands, bigger, faster, better armed than the horizon had been. They did not know what had happened to their first colony. But they would find out. In Velthar space, the rebellions grew. Species that had been slaves for generations were rising up. They fought with stolen weapons and desperate courage. The Empire struggled to maintain control, and then came the news that changed everything. A scout patrol at the edge of Velthar territory detected them. Ships. Thousands of ships. All of them heading deeper into the galaxy. All of them from that small blue world. The humans were coming. The scout ship rushed back to Luminara with the warning. Thexrin saw the images and felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. How many ships? He asked. We counted 10,000, the scout captain replied. But there may be more. They travel in a spread formation. 10,000 ships. More than the entire Velthar fleet. And these were not fragile colony vessels. These were warships. Bristling with weapons. Protected by armor. Moving with purpose. They are coming here, Thexrin said quietly. They know where we are. The colonists must have sent a message before they died. What do we do? Another council member asked. Thexrin stood. His body glowed bright with power and fear. We prepare. We gather every ship, every soldier, every resource. We will meet them at the border. We will crush them before they can threaten our worlds, and if we cannot? Someone asked. Nobody answered. The question hung in the air like poison. Across the Empire, the call went out. Every Velthar ship was ordered to gather. Every vassal species was commanded to provide soldiers and weapons. The greatest armada in galactic history began to assemble. 10,000 Velthar warships, 20,000 support vessels, 50,000 fighter craft, millions of soldiers from 100 conquered species. The Empire was committing everything. They called it the Armada of Subjugation. It would crush the human invasion before it could truly begin. It would show the galaxy that the Velthar were still the masters. The two fleets moved toward each other through the dark. Human and Velthar, both determined, both convinced of victory. Above Earth, the last transport ships were leaving. Millions of people being evacuated to Mars and the outer colonies. Just in case the fleet failed and the aliens came to Earth itself. But most people believed the fleet would win. Humans had conquered their world. They had built cities and civilizations. They had survived wars and disasters. They had even reached the stars. Surely they could handle some aliens. On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Namsik watched the star charts. He was old, a veteran of Earth's last major war. He had been retired when the crisis began. Now he commanded the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. How long until contact? He asked. 6 days, his sensor officer replied. 6 days until they reached the coordinates where the whore. The fleets met near a dying red star. 10,000 human ships faced 10,000 Velthar warships. For one moment there was only silence. The two forces stared at each other across the darkness of space. Then Admiral Namsik gave the order. Fire everything. The human fleet opened fire all at once. Missiles streaked through space. Railguns hurled metal slugs at a fraction of light speed. Laser batteries painted the darkness with beams of concentrated light. Humanity had brought every weapon they knew how to make. The Velthar fleet responded with plasma beams and energy shields. Their weapons were more advanced, more elegant, more precise, but the humans had more of them. A Velthar cruiser exploded under a barrage of missiles. A human destroyer vanished in a ball of plasma. Ships on both sides died in the first 10 seconds, then more. Then more. The battle became chaos. On the human flagship, Namsik watched the tactical display. Red icons showed his ships dying, but blue icons showed enemy ships dying too. The exchange rate was bad. For every Velthar ship destroyed, 3 human ships were lost. But humanity had more ships, and more importantly, humanity had something the Velthar did not expect. Human pilots began ramming enemy vessels. A damaged destroyer, its weapons offline and hull breaching, turned directly toward a Velthar battleship. It accelerated to full speed and crashed into the alien vessel. Both ships exploded in nuclear fire. This happened again, and again. Human crews, knowing they were about to die anyway, chose to take enemies with them. They turned their ships into missiles, into bombs, into funeral pyres that took the enemy down too. The Velthar were horrified. This was insane. No species fought like this. No species threw away their lives so easily. But humans had been throwing away their lives in battle for thousands of years. They knew how to die for a cause. On a Velthar command ship, Captain Ralthor watched the slaughter. He had survived the encounter with the Horizon months ago. Now he was here watching his predictions come true. The humans were not just resisting. They were winning. Fall back, he ordered his squadron. Regroup and coordinate fire. But the human fighters were already among them. Small craft, barely bigger than atmospheric planes, weaving through the battle like angry wasps. They carried oversized weapons that no sane engineer would mount on such small vessels. The recoil alone should have torn the fighters apart. Human pilots did not care about should. They fired anyway. A fighter destroyed a Velthar cruiser by flying directly into its engine core. Another pilot ejected at the last second, her ship crashing into the enemy bridge. She died, but so did the entire command crew. This was not warfare as the Velthar understood it. This was madness. On Earth, people watched the battle through transmitted footage. They saw their ships dying. They saw the casualty reports climbing. Thousands dead, tens of thousands. The numbers kept rising, but they also saw the enemy dying. And unlike the Velthar, humans had reserves. Wave after wave of reinforcement ships arrived from Earth and Mars. They were not fancy. Many were converted cargo vessels with weapons welded to their hulls. Some were privately owned ships whose captains had volunteered to fight. A few were ancient vessels pulled from museums and restored to working condition. The Velthar had committed everything to this one battle. Humans were treating it as the opening move. Deep in the battle, a human boarding party struck. Led by Captain Bora, 50 soldiers in armored suits used magnetic clamps to attach to a Velthar command ship. They cut through the hull with plasma torches and flooded inside. The Velthar crew tried to stop them with telepathy. It bounced off the neural dampeners that every human soldier wore. Heejin's final gift, transmitted in her message, had been shared with all of Earth. The humans fought through the ship corridor by corridor. The Velthar were not prepared for close combat. They had relied on telepathy for so long that they had forgotten how to fight with their bodies. Bora and her team reached the bridge. She planted explosives and escaped just before they detonated. The Velthar command ship went dark, its command crew dead. Similar boarding actions happened across the battlefield. Human soldiers proved to be better at hand-to-hand combat. They were more aggressive, more willing to take risks, more creative with their violence. The Velthar had been the galaxy's masters for so long that they had forgotten what real war looked like. Council Leader. Thexrin watched from Luminara as his fleet was torn apart. The tactical displays showed disaster after disaster. His ships were superior individually, but the humans fought with such ferocity, such disregard for their own lives, that they overwhelmed his forces through sheer will. "Recall the fleet," he ordered. "We must regroup," but it was too late for that. The battle had spread across the entire sector. Ships were scattered. Communications were jammed. Retreat would mean abandoning thousands of vessels. On the human flagship, Namsik saw the enemy begin to falter. "Press the attack," he ordered. "Do not let them regroup. Pursue every ship. Show no mercy." The human fleet surged forward. They chased down fleeing Velthar vessels. They hunted survivors through asteroid fields. They turned the retreat into a massacre. By the time the battle ended, 30 hours after it began, the results were clear. The human fleet had lost 7,000 ships. 50,000 soldiers and crew were dead. It was the single worst military disaster in human history. But the Velthar armada had been destroyed. Of the 10,000 ships that entered battle, fewer than 1,000 escaped. The elite of the Empire's military power was gone. Admiral Namsik stood on his bridge, looking at the debris field that stretched across millions of kilometers. Ships burning, bodies floating. The price of victory. "Send a message to the Velthar homeworld," he said quietly. "Tell them this. Humanity will not be conquered. Humanity will not be enslaved. Leave us alone or we will burn your empire to ash." The message was sent. It reached Luminara within hours. Thexrin read it in his private chamber. For the first time in his long life, he felt true fear. The humans had won. Against all logic, against all probability, they had won. Worse, rebellions were erupting everywhere. Species that had been slaves for generations were rising up, inspired by human example. The Empire was collapsing. The 3 ancient Seers appeared at his door. They did not gloat. They only looked sad. "You were warned," the oldest said. "What do we do now?" Thexrin asked. "You negotiate," the Seer replied. "You surrender. You accept that your age is over and a new age has begun." "Never," Thexrin said. "The Empire will not bow to primitives." "Then the Empire will die," the Seer said simply. They turned and left. Thexrin sat alone for a long time. Then he made his decision. He would rather see the Empire fall than surrender to humans. He ordered the remaining Velthar forces to continue fighting. Every ship, every soldier, fight until the end. But the remaining forces had other ideas. Captain Ralthor received the order and looked at his crew. They were exhausted. They were traumatized. They did not want to die for the Council's pride. "No," Ralthor said. "I will not lead you to death. This war is over." He opened a channel to the human fleet. "This is Captain Ralthor of the Velthar. I request terms of peace." On the human flagship, Namsik was surprised. He had expected the war to continue for years. He had expected to fight all the way to Luminara. "You are authorized to negotiate?" Namsik asked. "I am now," Ralthor replied. "Many ships have followed my lead. We do not wish to continue this war. What about your council? Namsik asked. The council is finished, Ralthor said. They led us to disaster. We will not follow them further. And so in the debris field of the greatest battle ever fought, the Velar Empire ended, not with a final glorious stand, but with a quiet surrender. The crews of hundreds of ships simply stopped fighting. On Luminara, Thexrin raged. He ordered Ralthor arrested for treason. But no one obeyed. The remaining council members began to flee, taking ships to distant worlds to escape the chaos. The rebellions spread. Within weeks, dozens of worlds declared independence. The slave species were free. The Empire's territory shrank day by day. The humans, surprisingly, did not pursue conquest. They claimed a few systems near their original territory, including the moon where the horizon had crashed. They built a memorial there, listing the names of all 9,000 colonists who had died. But mostly, humanity just wanted to be left alone. They had come to the stars seeking peace. They had found war. Now they wanted to go back to exploring and building. Admiral Namsik met with Captain Ralthor on neutral ground, a space station halfway between their territories. They negotiated a treaty. Borders were established. Trade agreements were made. The Velthar agreed to never use telepathy against unwilling subjects again. You could have destroyed us completely, Ralthor said during the negotiations. Why did you show mercy? Because we are not conquerors, Namsik replied. We fight when we must, but we would rather be friends. Ralthor thought about this. It was a foreign concept. The Velthar had never had friends, only subjects and enemies. Perhaps, Ralthor said slowly, perhaps that is why you won. Back on Earth, parades celebrated the victorious fleet. But it was a somber celebration. Too many had died. Too many ships would never come home. In a small apartment in Seoul, an old woman named Haisun watched the parades on her screen.
He